My name is Malcolm Golding and I'm a British artist, and I've been an artist since I was 5 or 6 years old. I became an artist because there was no other choice. I'm dyslexic. Now dyslexic means that one side of my mind is very creative, the other side is very forgetful. So I find it very hard to read or to remember things which are like mathematical things. But I find it very easy to create. And so the choice from when I was 5 or 6 was very simple. Do what I want to do and don't try to do something I can't do. Hong Kong was an accident in a way. I was living in India, creating, painting and designing. And the interior designer for the Shangri-La Hotel on Kowloon side, when they were building it, visited me in India and asked me to come and to see the lobby and to see if I could come up with 2 large paintings for the lobby of the Shangri-La Hotel. So I came, and while they were building it, I created a concept and gave it to the interior designer, who was Don Ashton, a very famous interior designer. And he accepted the design and then asked me to come back to actually paint the lobby paintings of the Shangri-La Hotel. I stay in Hong Kong because of the opportunities that it gives to a creative person. Many years ago, I've been here now for 39 years. When I first came and completed the Shangri-La Hotel, straight away I had other commissions to work on from the Shangri-La publicity. And at the time there were only 2 artists doing major work in Hong Kong. There was myself and Gerard Henderson. Now, between the 2 of us, we did most of the large work in Hong Kong, mainly because people could rely on us to do it, right? And we also were able to think in terms of executing the work and carrying it through and finishing it, because you need to be able to give people a sense of security and let them know that you can start and finish a one-man project. So work carried on throughout the years, and it's never been a problem to start on something and finish it, fortunately. According to the commission, you choose the materials in order to work on the commission. So for instance, if it's a small picture, you can work with pencil on paper or canvas, or you can paint on a panel, wooden panel, or if it's small. If it gets larger, then you need to be able to paint on the wall directly, or if you're outside, you need to be able to paint up on a ladder on the outside of it. And then you have to choose the material that's going to be resilient enough for that situation. So it's a matter of choosing the materials according to the project, and quite often there isn't much of a choice. You have to choose the material that's going to suit it. Some projects need to last many years, so you have to find a material that's going to weather and last many years. And other projects are just almost like pop-up projects, which they don't need to last for a long time, but they need to have the impact. So according to that, you choose the materials which will suit the situation the most. The interesting thing about just drawing with pencil on paper is that it's very simple and quick and easy to do in terms of you don't need too much technical ability. So what's actually happening is you're transferring an idea relatively quickly onto paper for other people to see what your idea is. So that idea needs to have a background, a content. And so let's just take like these drawings at the back. For instance, the first one is everybody has a life and we're all put into these boxes and we're all numbered. So the concept is very simple. These are numbered boxes of our lives. So that's the story, that's the concept behind that particular drawing. It doesn't have to be any more complicated. This one is a floating palace. Now, palaces are usually things that we as normal, common people don't get to go and see. So they're a figment of our imagination. And this is a palace that's floating in the sky. That's almost like a dream. So you can create a concept that doesn't need to be a reality. That's the idea behind that. This particular one is a symbol. It's symbolizing the connection between most things in life. You have mother and father, you have the hot and cold, the good and bad, there's all the yin and yangs in life, but there's also, without the opposites, life doesn't really register. So if you're born, you're going to die, etc., etc. So this is a symbol. It's symbolizing the movement between the beginning and the end, or the end and the beginning. It's purely a symbol. But in your mind, you can create the symbol to explain that concept. And then the fourth one is also symbolizing the idea of having a thought. And when you have a thought, your thought is there before you think it. It's there, and then you sort of realize it. And so this is the seed of a thought in your mind before you realize. We entertain ourselves by thinking, and before we even realize what we've thought about, the thought is inside our mind, and then we speak it. But if you realize the fact that before we speak the thought, we have to think it. So it's a little bit like, well, that's interesting. I thought of that before I actually realized it, and that is fascinating. That's an interesting concept. And I kind of often get carried away by that thought alone. In the 60s in England, fashion was like the big thing, fashion and music. So I was very much involved in Carnaby Street, in the King's Road in Chelsea, fashion, and I was very much into design, fashion design for some large fashion companies in England. And from fashion, I went into theatre design because fashion with the costumes let me go into the theatre, the costume theatre design. And then from theatre design, from the costumes, etc., I went into the backdrops for the theatre, like the large set designs. And from set design, I went into art direction for films and for commercials and most things like that. You know, an art director directs the situation for the director for the film director to put the actors and actresses in, etc. So it was a natural progression of being able to understand my ability. Now, slowly that broadened, because as an artist, you're always looking for a challenge. So within that, I did fabric design and many other different aspects. And at one point, when I was in Hong Kong, I was going to have an exhibition. And I was introduced to Patrick from JM Style. And we sat down in his showroom in Star House, and I said, I'd like to have an exhibition of my drawings, paintings here, but before I have the exhibition, I'd like to rearrange your furniture. So he said, well, do what you like to do, that's okay. So I rearranged the showroom, and then we had the exhibition. Now, as an artist, rearranging furniture is like rearranging the abstract interior. To rearrange furniture is not being an interior designer as such, but it's rearranging the composition so that you see everything around you, and basically so you can see my art on the wall and feel happy with it, right? Once I'd done that, we realized that it was actually quite an improvement. So I became good friends with Patrick of GM Style, and eventually I became the creative director for GM Style and arranged the displays in the different showrooms that JM Style had at the time. So that became quite a challenging job for me. And in doing that, I started to become very interested in designing furniture. And furniture became a part of that project. It became a successful part of that project. I have a relationship with Patrick, which is a very good one, because it's a working relationship where Patrick is a businessman that looks at the trends and creates the furniture to fit into the trends in Hong Kong and around the world, but Hong Kong in general. So when we were going to design a couch, for instance, to fit into the needs of Hong Kong, what you need to do is to look at the average size of an apartment, which is small. So what I wanted to do was design a couch, a three-seater couch, that looked double the size and to fit into a small apartment. So using that concept, you have a large looking design in a small apartment. So that becomes successful because people measure furniture by the inch to see whether they can fit into their rooms, right? And it's a design trick to make something look larger than it actually is. Of course, you know, that's the art of design. So as we design different products different pieces of furniture, we started to adopt also a sense of humor. And so, for instance, this chair is a chair which I designed, an armchair which I designed, and I called it the bug chair because it resembles a bug in the nicest way. It has the kind of bug legs and then the sort of a body and then the sort of bug eyes. But it's a sense of humor which you put into a design, which then people will remember and say, oh, you know, that was the bug design, that was the, right? And it has classic features, and it will probably look the same and as fresh and as modern in 20 years' time, because we're not holding back on a particular style, but we're creating one. And now that is a completely fresh new design. This is a classic chair which was designed probably in the 50s, and it's a classic chair which on its own is beautiful. You'll see it in homes, and you'll also see it in expensive offices and things. But what I did here was I painted on the white leather a scene of the Peak Tram, which makes this an individual chair related to Hong Kong. And it is a one of a kind. But this is what you can do as an artist. You can create something which is a classic chair or a classic piece of furniture and individualize it to relate to the area that you're in, and we're in Hong Kong. So this is a scene of the Peak Tram. This is the only one, and I think actually that it's the only piece of furniture in Hong Kong that's portraying Hong Kong as a piece of furniture. In actual fact, this probably should go into a museum because, you know, you don't really want to sit on it. You want to admire it for the beauty and for the story behind it. And probably in 100 years' time, this will be in a museum. As a parent, I have one daughter, and my daughter is a hat designer in London, and she didn't know what to do until she was like 20, 21 or something like that. And then she decided that she wanted to do fashion, and in particular hat design. So she went to college for hat design, and then she got different courses. And now she has become the head designer for a company in London called Lock & Co., which have been the appointed designers for the royal family for the last 200-300 years. They are the most prestigious hat manufacturers in London. And besides that, she has designed hats for Lady Gaga, Prince Meghan, Kylie Minogue, and lots of different celebrities. Now, the point is that a little bit of my creative DNA has trickled through to her, and she has now found her way as a designer, which is a wonderful gift as a parent to give as part of yourself, you know. And young people, they don't really need to have a parent that is gifted in that way, but young people have the ability to see trends, fashion, and what's going on in the world, And they're quite clever with computers and creating images on computers and things. So for young people in Hong Kong, my advice is that you follow your dream. If you enjoy cartoon design, carry on, do the cartoon design, or it will slowly morph into something which becomes a profit-given vocation. Everything starts from the beginning, and you're not a success from the beginning, but you slowly understand where you want to go in life, and you develop and you learn, because the best way to learn is when you're interested in what you're doing. So if you're interested in what you're doing, you automatically learn what you want to do, right? And you become better without even realizing. And in Hong Kong, we are very lucky because we are, in a way, on top of everything all the time. We see things happening all the time. It's a very modern city. We have modern buildings, we have modern way of living. So all you need to do is advance yourself. What am I going to do next year? What will I need next year? I'll make that creative design, I'll do it for next year. Like the iPad and everything else, Steve Jobs, he thought in front of the reality and created the iPad, the iPhone and everything. And now everyone wants it. Oh, they need it. We can't do without it. And simple things like that, you project an idea into the future. What do we all need next year? You know, it could be in fashion, it could be in anything. And then you try to develop it. And there is always a market for it. And that's where Hong Kong possibly could survive and the young people could find a future. I hope so. I suppose for me as an artist, I look at the future and I always think of the future as the future, something to look forward to. And people should always think of the future as a challenge, but not something to be frightened of. The future every day is a door that opens that we can take advantage of. And we mustn't take the past. You know, sometimes we don't have an easy past or things don't work out. But the next day can be the change. And we mustn't be depressed about the past. It's the future. The day today is the day that you make a change. Tomorrow is the future. So it's important for everybody, young and old, to realize that life is always worth living. It's always a gift, and we should always be ready to take that choice in life to be brave. Right? Nobody has control about life. None of us. But we do have a certain amount of strength if we believe in ourselves. And my hope is that people, young people, and everyone, believe in themselves to a point where life is always worth living.